In the quiet chambers of your mind, have you ever felt the subtle tremor of change? The fleeting nature of a perfect moment, the bittersweet departure of a loved one, the unnerving realization that the self you are today is not the self you were yesterday, nor the one you will be tomorrow. We build our lives on foundations we believe to be solid, seeking permanence in a world defined by flux. But what if the key to unwavering strength and profound peace lies not in resisting this flow, but in understanding it with every fiber of our being? Before the title of the Buddha, the Awakened One, was ever uttered, there was a prince named Siddhartha Gautama, living a life meticulously curated to be a fortress against suffering. Within the opulent walls of his father's palace, every sight, every sound, every experience was designed to cultivate an illusion of permanence, of unending pleasure and youth. He was surrounded by beauty, health, and vitality, shielded from the raw, unfiltered truths of the world that lay beyond the gates. Old age, sickness, and death were concepts as foreign to him as a distant star, abstract notions with no bearing on his gilded reality. His world was a perfect, static masterpiece, where the gardens were always in bloom, the music never ceased, and the faces around him were forever young and joyful. This was not merely a life of luxury, it was a carefully constructed reality, an experiment to defy the natural order of things, to create a man who would never know sorrow and therefore never question the world he was destined to rule. Yet, the human spirit, in its deepest essence, yearns for truth, and no wall, however high, can indefinitely hold back the tides of reality. An unquenchable curiosity, a divine discontent, began to stir within the prince's heart. He felt a sense that the perfect world he inhabited was an incomplete picture, a beautiful but fragile veneer stretched thin over a deeper, more complex truth. This inner stirring was the first crack in the foundation of his sheltered existence, the silent prelude to a revolution that would transform not only his own life, but the spiritual landscape of humanity. He yearned to see the world as it truly was, unfiltered by the loving but misguided protection of his father. This yearning was the first step on a path that would lead him away from the transient security of the known and into the profound, unsettling, and ultimately liberating wilderness of the real. It was a journey that began not with a grand pronouncement, but with a simple, powerful desire to see. And so, against the wishes of his father, he commanded his charioteer, Channa, to take him beyond the palace walls, into the city where the lives of ordinary people unfolded. It was on these fated excursions that the carefully constructed illusion of his life would be irrevocably shattered, not by a cataclysmic event, but by the simple, inescapable realities of the human condition. The universe was preparing to show him the truth he unknowingly sought, a truth that would strip him of his princely robes and set him on a quest for an unshakable peace, a peace not dependent on fleeting external conditions, but found within the very heart of existence itself, a peace that would one day be offered to all the world. The first sight to pierce the veil of Siddhartha's carefully managed reality was that of an old man. Standing by the roadside, he saw a figure frail and bent, with skin like wrinkled parchment, a toothless mouth, and hair as white as snow. The man leaned heavily on a staff, his movements slow and labored, his body a testament to the relentless passage of time. For Siddhartha, who had only ever known the peak of human vitality, this vision was a profound shock. He turned to his charioteer, his voice filled with a new and unsettling bewilderment, and asked what had happened to this man. Channa, with a heavy heart, explained the simple, universal truth of old age, explaining that this was the eventual fate awaiting all beings, even a prince. The seed of impermanence had been planted. On his next journey, he encountered a sick man, his body racked with disease, groaning in agony by the side of the road. The sight of such raw, physical suffering, the body's betrayal of its own inhabitant, struck another deep blow to the prince's worldview. He learned from Channa that sickness was a part of life, an unpredictable shadow that could fall upon anyone, rich or poor, prince or pauper, without warning. The fortress of his own health and strength suddenly felt fragile, vulnerable. The third sight was the most stark, the most final. He saw a funeral procession, a still body being carried to the cremation ground, mourned by weeping relatives. This was death, the absolute cessation of being, the undeniable end of a life's journey. The sight of this corpse, lifeless and inert, was a direct confrontation with the ultimate truth of impermanence. Channa explained that this fate, too, was universal. No one, he said, is exempt. The walls of the palace, the wealth of a kingdom, the love of a family, none of it could build a lasting defense against this final, inevitable decay. The prince's heart was thrown into a state of profound turmoil. The world he had known, a world of permanent joy, was a lie. Life, he now saw, was a fragile, fleeting flame, subject to the winds of time, illness, and death. But then, on a fourth trip, he saw an ascetic, a wandering holy man. The man was calm, his face radiating a serene and profound peace, though he had no worldly possessions. In the ascetic's tranquil demeanor, Siddhartha saw a possibility, a different path. He saw that it might be possible to understand the nature of suffering and, in understanding it, to transcend it. This was the turning point. The prince realized that he could no longer live in the comfortable illusion of the palace. He understood that true security could not be found by shutting out the world, but only by facing its truths head-on. The sights of old age, sickness, and death had revealed the problem of existence, but the sight of the serene ascetic revealed the possibility of a solution. That night, he made the great renunciation, leaving behind his palace, his wife, his newborn son, and his royal destiny, to seek the answer to the fundamental problem of human suffering, an answer rooted in the penetrating insight into the impermanence of all things. The relentless pursuit of permanence in a world that is inherently transient is the fundamental source of our deepest anxieties. We behave like architects meticulously building castles of sand on the edge of a restless ocean, investing our entire being into their form and structure, only to be met with despair when the inevitable tide rolls in. This desperate clinging, known in Buddhist philosophy as upadana, is not merely a desire for pleasant things. It is a profound, often unconscious, demand that reality conforms to our wishes. We cling to the peak moments of joy, attempting to freeze them in time, to make them the permanent landscape of our lives. We cling to the people we love, seeking an impossible guarantee that they will never change, never leave, never be touched by the universal law of impermanence. We cling to our youth and health, resisting the natural unfolding of the life cycle with a deep-seated fear of decay. We even cling to our identities, to the carefully constructed narrative of who we are, our roles, our accomplishments, our beliefs. This constructed self becomes a fortress we must constantly defend against the evidence of a fluid reality. When a relationship ends, it is not just the loss of a person that causes us pain. It is the shattering of the future we had built, the identity we had as a partner. When we lose a job, it is not just the loss of income. It is the dissolution of our professional identity, the role that gave us a sense of purpose and stability. This constant effort to hold on, to fix, and to solidify creates a deep and pervasive tension within our minds. It is a war waged against the very nature of existence. This struggle is the fertile ground from which the weeds of dukkha, suffering, dissatisfaction, and stress grow. The greater our attachment, the more we try to solidify the ever-flowing river of life, the greater our suffering will be when that river inevitably continues its journey. We are caught in a paradox. The very act of seeking lasting security in fleeting things is what creates our most profound insecurity. The mind, in its ignorance of this law, perpetually chases mirages in a desert, believing each one will finally quench its thirst for permanence, only to find another patch of shimmering, empty sand. The wisdom of Buddhism does not ask us to stop loving, to stop enjoying, or to stop building. It asks us to see the nature of what we are building with, to understand the nature of the ground upon which we stand. It invites us to love, to enjoy, and to live fully, but with a wisdom that does not demand permanence from that which is, by its very nature, impermanent. To dismantle the fortress of suffering built upon the foundation of attachment one must cultivate a new way of seeing, a direct and penetrating insight into the nature of reality itself. This is the path of meditation, not as a means of escape, but as a method for radical engagement with the present moment. Through the practice of mindfulness, we train the mind to observe the ceaseless flow of experience without judgment, without clinging, and without aversion. We learn to sit and watch the parade of our own consciousness. We observe thoughts as they arise in the mind, perhaps as memories, plans, or fleeting judgments. We learn to see them not as solid entities or absolute truths, but as transient mental events, like clouds drifting across the vast, open sky of awareness. They appear, they linger for a moment, and they dissolve. By not grasping at them, by not getting carried away on their currents, we begin to sever the chains of habitual reactivity. We bring this same quality of attention to the sensations within our body. We feel the rhythm of the breath, the gentle rise and fall of the abdomen, the subtle tingling in the hands or the feeling of warmth on the skin. We also learn to sit with discomfort, with the ache in a knee or the tension in the shoulders, observing these sensations simply as raw data, as patterns of energy that rise, peak, and eventually pass away. This practice reveals a profound truth. Our body is not a static object but a dynamic process, a constant river of sensation, changing from moment to moment. This same insight is then applied to our emotional landscape. When a wave of sadness, anger, or even intense joy arises, the trained mind does not become swept away by it. Instead, it holds the emotion with a gentle, non-judgmental awareness. We allow ourselves to feel it fully, yet we see it for what it is, a temporary energetic pattern, a visitor that will not stay forever. In seeing the impermanence of our own emotions, we rob them of their power to dominate us. This is the cultivation of true inner strength. It is not a rigid, unfeeling armor that blocks out life, but a profound and flexible resilience, like that of a great tree that bends with the wind, but whose roots hold firm in the deep earth of wisdom. By embracing impermanence, we learn to dance with the rhythm of life, rather than standing defiantly against its current. We find a peace that is not dependent on having our preferences met, but which arises from the deep acceptance of reality as it is. This is the liberation that the Buddha pointed to, a freedom found not in changing the world, but in changing the way we see it. To intellectually assent to the doctrine of impermanence is a simple affair. It is an observable, logical truth that few would rationally dispute. Yet, to integrate this truth into the very marrow of our being is perhaps the most profound challenge of a human life. Why does the mind resist so fiercely? The resistance stems from the ego, the constructed sense of a solid, continuous self. This I is a narrative, a story woven from the threads of memory, identity, and ambition. It thrives on the illusion of permanence. It defines itself by what it has been and what it plans to become. The teaching of impermanence is a direct threat to this narrative's integrity. It suggests that the protagonist of our inner story is not a fixed character, but a fluid process. It whispers the unsettling truth that the self you are so desperately trying to protect, promote, and perpetuate is, in fact, as transient as a morning mist. This is a terrifying proposition for the ego, which equates dissolution with annihilation. Society, in turn, reinforces the ego's quest for permanence at every turn. We are conditioned to build legacies, to acquire assets that will outlast us, to carve our names into stone. Our economic systems are built on accumulation and growth, our social structures on stable roles and identities, our cultural stories on heroes who achieve a lasting impact. We are taught to measure a life's worth by what remains after it is over. This cultural programming creates a powerful internal conflict. We are living in a world of constant flux, while being told to value only that which endures. This is the source of a deep, existential friction. We are trying to hold our footing on ground that is, by its very nature, a flowing river. Beneath this psychological and cultural conditioning lies a more primal force, the raw fear of non-existence. To fully accept impermanence means to look squarely at the reality of our own mortality, to acknowledge that this body, this mind, This entire constellation of experiences we call me will one day cease to be. The untrained mind recoils from this thought, pushing it into the shadows, distracting itself with the endless pursuit of pleasure and the frantic avoidance of pain. We cling to things, to people, to beliefs, because they serve as anchors, creating the illusion of stability in the face of this ultimate uncertainty. Our attachments are not just preferences, they are shields against the terror of the void. And so, the critical reflection on impermanence becomes a courageous act of turning inward to face these deeply ingrained fears, to question the very foundation of our identity, and to gently, patiently begin the process of loosening our grip on the beautiful, flowing, and ultimately transient story of ourselves. The practice of critical reflection is not a grim, intellectual exercise in dwelling on loss. It is a vital, moment-to-moment training in seeing reality as it is, which paradoxically unlocks a more vibrant and appreciative way of living. We do not need to retreat to a monastery to begin this work. The laboratory is our own life. The experiment is our own experience. It begins with the cultivation of a gentle, consistent curiosity. You can start with the breath. Each inhalation is a birth, a receiving of life. Each exhalation is a small death, a letting go. In this simple, rhythmic cycle is the entire story of impermanence, played out in the theater of your own body, moment after moment. By anchoring your awareness here, you are not just calming the nervous system, you are training the mind to become intimate with the nature of flux. From the breath, you can expand this awareness outward. Consider the cup of tea in your hands. Observe the warmth as it gradually fades. Notice the subtle shifts in flavor as it cools. The experience of drinking tea is not a single, static event, but a flow of changing sensations. That first perfect sip is gone forever, and in its place is another, different sip. By paying attention in this way, you are witnessing impermanence directly, not as a philosophy, but as a lived reality. This practice can then be extended to the often turbulent realm of emotions. When a wave of anger, sadness, or anxiety washes over you, the habit of the untrained mind is to either be completely consumed by it or to desperately try to push it away. The path of reflection invites a third option, to observe it with mindful curiosity. You can ask yourself, where do I feel this emotion in my body? Is it a tightness in the chest, a heat in the face, a knot in the stomach? Does it have a constant intensity, or does it ebb and flow? By investigating it in this way, as a pattern of energy and sensation, you begin to see that it, too, is impermanent. It arises due to causes and conditions. It stays for a while, and, if you allow it to, it will pass. This doesn't mean you become an unfeeling robot. On the contrary, you learn to feel more fully, but with a wisdom that prevents you from being enslaved by your own emotional weather patterns. You begin to understand that you are not the storm. You are the sky in which the storm is passing. This is how inner strength is forged. It is the strength that comes from deep seeing, from the profound and liberating realization that you can be at peace amidst the inevitable changes of life because you have finally understood the nature of the river. The ultimate synthesis of this penetrating insight into impermanence is a profound and beautiful paradox. By fully embracing the transient nature of all things, we discover an unshakable inner peace. This is not the peace of insensibility or detachment, but the deep, abiding calm of a mind that has ceased its futile war with reality. True stability is not found by arranging the external world so that it never changes an impossible and exhausting task. It is found by cultivating an internal foundation of wisdom so profound that it remains serene amidst the inevitable chaos of gain and loss, praise and blame, pleasure and pain. Imagine a great, ancient tree. It does not resist the changing seasons. It allows its leaves to turn color and fall in autumn. It stands bare against the winter winds. It puts forth new buds in spring, and it offers its full, vibrant life to the summer sun. Its strength is not in its rigidity, but in its deep-rooted, flexible surrender to the flow of life. Our minds can become like this tree. When we understand that all experiences, pleasant and painful, are like changing weather, we can stop identifying with the storm of the moment and instead learn to rest in the deep, quiet stillness of our own awareness. This understanding also becomes the fertile ground for the growth of genuine compassion. When we see the inherent fragility and impermanence of our own lives, we can look upon others with a new and profound empathy. We recognize that every other being, without exception, is also navigating this same river of birth, aging, sickness, and death. They too are clinging to fleeting joys and recoiling from inevitable sorrows. This shared vulnerability dissolves the walls of separation, judgment, and hostility that the ego so carefully constructs. In the light of our shared impermanence, arrogance has no place to stand. We see the struggles of others as our own, and the desire to alleviate their suffering arises naturally and spontaneously from the heart. This is the birth of karuna, a compassion that is not rooted in pity, but in the wisdom of our interconnectedness. This synthesis of wisdom and compassion is the source of true freedom, a release from the self-imposed prison of our cravings, aversions, and fears. We are free to love, but without the painful grip of attachment. We are free to enjoy success, but without the fear of failure. We are free to experience sorrow, but without falling into despair. We learn to hold the world lightly, to participate in its dance with grace and courage, because we know that the only thing that is truly ours is the quality of our own heart and mind in this precious, fleeting moment. This new way of being, born from the synthesis of wisdom and compassion, is not a distant goal to be achieved in the future. It is a path to be walked in the here and now. The practice becomes life itself. Every moment, every interaction, becomes an opportunity to deepen our understanding and express our awakened heart. When you are with a loved one, you can learn to be fully present with them, drinking in their unique existence, knowing that this moment is a precious, unrepeatable gift. The knowledge of impermanence does not diminish this love. It infuses it with a poignant and sacred urgency, stripping away petty grievances and focusing the mind on what truly matters. In your work, your purpose can shift from the egoic pursuit of building an indestructible legacy to the heartfelt intention of offering your skills and energy in service to others, right now. The quality of your presence and the kindness in your actions become more important than the final outcome, freeing you from the anxiety of ambition and allowing you to find joy in the process itself. When faced with challenges, a difficult diagnosis, a financial setback, a painful conflict, the insight into impermanence becomes your greatest ally. It offers the profound consolation that this too shall pass, not as a hollow platitude, but as a deep, experiential truth. This knowledge does not magically remove the pain, but it creates a space of wisdom around it, preventing the pain from hardening into despair. It gives you the strength to endure, to learn, and to grow through adversity, knowing that even the darkest night eventually gives way to the dawn. Living in this way is a radical act. It is to swim against the cultural tide of denial and distraction. It is to choose to live with eyes wide open, embracing the full, beautiful, and heartbreaking reality of the human condition. It is to find ultimate security not in what we can hold on to, but in our capacity to gracefully let go. The synthesis is complete when there is no longer a separation between your meditation practice and your daily life. Your life becomes the meditation. Your every breath is a lesson in letting go. Your every step a dance with the present moment, and your every interaction an expression of a heart that has found its home in the very heart of change. This is the penetrating insight that liberates. It is the wisdom that fosters an inner strength that cannot be shaken, and the key to finding a profound and lasting peace amidst the chaotic, beautiful, and ever-changing world. The river of life will always flow. You cannot stop it, but you can learn to build a raft of wisdom, to navigate its currents with grace, and to find a home not on a distant, solid shore, but in the heart of the journey itself. The peace you seek is not at the end of change, but within it. The strength you crave is not found in resisting the wave, but in learning how to ride it. And the path begins now, in this breath, with this moment, exactly as it is.